Hey guys, and welcome back to Mellyns. So today I'm going to be doing a foundation wear test for you guys on the Marc Jacobs Shameless Foundation. I'm so excited to try this out. Influencer actually sent this to me for free, complimentary, for reviewing purposes. If you guys are not aware of what Influencer is, I will leave a link down below. Basically, it's this like website where you can go and like review products, and then if they think you're a good candidate for a box that they're sending out, you will get like a survey, and then you can fill that out, and then they will send you product. So they have all different stuff. They have like makeup and like wellness and like health and food and like everything you could ever possibly imagine to like review and stuff. So they cover a lot of different categories, but beauty is obviously the one I'm focused on. So yeah, so that's how I got this. It's funny because I literally almost bought this at Sephora the other day online. I was like going back and forth with it because I really wanted to try it out, but I've been buying so much foundation. I was like, no, like I need to stop. So, and then when I found out that I was getting this, I was so excited. So I have it in the shade Light Y270. So we're gonna see, hopefully this is a good match. We're just gonna check it out. If I can get the box open. Why do I always struggle getting boxes open? So this is the shade that I picked. I actually did a pretty decent job picking the shade. I'm really surprised with myself. But yeah, so we're gonna test it out today. Excuse this giant red bump on my lip. I had this like really gnarly like blackhead going on, and I got it extracted, and this is just what's left. So that is in the process of healing, so ignore that. But yes, we're gonna jump on into this. First I want to talk to you guys about kind of what this foundation is and what it's targeted for. So in the box we actually got this little booklet with the foundation that kind of explains like what it is. And it says on here that it's a youthful look 24-hour foundation with SPF 25. So I like that it has SPF in it, especially as we get into these warmer months, although there's snow on the ground outside, so I don't really know when that's going to happen. But for a while there, it looked like it was actually going to be spring. But as we transition into the warmer months, eventually, SPF in my foundation is something that I really look for, especially because I'm not the best at putting on sunscreen as well as my makeup. Sometimes I forget, so it's nice to have products that already have that in there, just in case you're like me and you forget to put on sunscreen. So yeah, so it's 24-hour wear. We're gonna test that out today. So it says that it's a self-setting finish. Not really sure what that means, but I'm assuming that basically I'm not gonna have to set this with powder. I like the sound of that. I like products that make putting on my makeup easier. It has invisible SPF. We just talked about the SPF. So yeah, it's a medium buildable foundation with first ever flashback free SPF and exceptional hydration. I definitely need that too. So I'm excited to test that out. This is kind of the consistency that I like to go for. I like a more light to medium coverage that also is a little bit buildable in some areas. So I'm excited to try this out. And yeah, we're just gonna dive on in. I do want to mention that they do have 29 shades, so there is a good shade range, I think. They have a lot of undertones too, is what I realized, or what I noticed when I was trying to pick out the color before I knew that it was this product. When I got the survey, I was trying to pick out like the color from these pictures, and I was like, there are so many different shades, like but not even just so many different shades, there's so many different undertones. So they have pink undertones, yellow undertones, golden undertones, they have beige undertones. I'm pretty sure they have neutral too. I saw that somewhere. They have pink, beige. So literally there's a lot of different combinations. So I think this is a good range for hopefully every skin tone. But yeah, so we're gonna just dive on in. That's all kind of the information that I have for you guys. So now let's test it out. I'm going to start off with primer first, obviously, and I'm gonna use the Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer just because this is the primer that I've been using the most recently. So I know how it performs. I wanted to use something that I am very familiar with since this foundation is new to me. So I'm just going to slather this all over my face. I do have a few dry patches right now, especially like right here. I don't know if you guys can see that. You probably can. It looks really gross. I reacted weirdly to a product that I've been using for a really long time, so I'm not really sure what that's about, but So I'm going to use a brush today because that is how I normally like to put on my foundation. I used to be a really big Beauty Blender fan, but recently I just haven't been using them. So I'm going to use a brush and I'm going to be mixing it up and be using, like, trying out 2 different brushes. So I have my Morphe M439, which this is the brush I like to use when foundations have a little bit lighter coverage because it's just a big buffing brush. So when a foundation has light coverage, I find that it's just easier to buff in big areas, because that's just what works best for my skin. But when a foundation has more medium to full coverage, I like to use a smaller brush, and this is the Sephora Pro Flawless Airbrush number 56, just so that I can get into the creases and I can, like, build it up very lightly as I go. That's kind of how I like to work with more medium to full coverage foundations. So I'm probably going to use this brush, but I will test a little bit with this brush too, just to see how it goes. So I don't know. So we're gonna give it a little shake. There is 1.08 fluid ounce in this product, so even though it looks pretty small, it is a full size. It's over an ounce. That's usually what foundations are, usually about an ounce of product. So even though it does look very small and compact, it is a whole ounce of product. It's actually a little bit over an ounce. They have an expiration date on here, which I think is really interesting. I think that's very helpful too. So it says this expires in 10/20, which is pretty nice. I wonder if it's because it has a sunscreen in it that it has to have that applicator. What is this thing? It's not a pump, it is a squeezy tube. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. So I'm just gonna squeeze a tiny bit out to start. The color looks pretty decent. It might be a tad dark. Not dark, but I am very pale right now because I've been stuck inside for the last 3 months because of the winter. But eventually I feel like when I do have a little bit more color back in my skin, this will be a perfect match. But for right now, it might be a little, like a smidge too dark. But we're just gonna try it out. So I'm just gonna take a little bit on my brush and just start blending. I'll just use my viewfinder, I guess. So first application, like when it first goes on, it's very, very full coverage. But as you kind of blend it out, it kind of starts to sheer out a little bit, but not totally. I mean, there's still pretty good, decent coverage. It's definitely covering up all my redness. Let's do a little more. Oh, I did a little too much. So I'll bring it down on my chin. I'm going to do half my face first and then show you guys what it looks like, and then we will do the other half. Alright, so I'm definitely finding more success with, like, stippling the product in, or like pressing it into the skin rather than like rubbing it or buffing it into the skin. I think that's what's making it look the most, like, flawless. Definitely, like, medium buildable coverage. It looks very full coverage on camera, but up close you can see a little bit of redness peeking through. So it's definitely a more medium coverage. Alright, I'm just going to zoom you guys in quickly so you can see this side of my face. Okay. So this is it zoomed in. I don't know if you can see right here, but right here, like, my skin is really dry. So there's, like, flakiness going on. I don't really know what's happening. But on the rest of my face, it's not doing that, so I don't really know what's happening there. But here's my skin. It's a little tacky. You can still see that you can see some redness, some, like, spots right here. But overall, I feel like the coverage is really nice. I thought this was going to be a little bit patchy on my skin just because my skin is so dry right now. I thought it was going to cling in some of those places, but other than, like, right here on my jawline where it started to, like, get, like, flaky, it's not doing anything. And that's just my skin. My skin on my neck is so incredibly dry right now that I think it was from me, like, pulling the foundation down, not so much the foundation on my face. But anyway, so far I really like this. It is a little tacky, so I feel like I'm gonna have to set this. I don't know about that set free, I don't know, but I do really like it. I'm gonna try one more layer on this side, and then we are going to move on to the other side of my face with the big buffing brush and see what that does. So I'm gonna zoom back out for a second. Okay, so zoomed you guys back out. I'm gonna do a little bit, one more layer, like right in here where my redness is most prominent, and then see how that looks. So it definitely layered very nicely. It doesn't look, like, dry at all on my cheeks. It's actually not sinking into my pores at all, like right here where they are the biggest. I struggle with it so much. But it does look really good. It is, like, clinging a little bit around my nose in those dry patches. But again, every foundation does that on me, so I don't really know. The big test will be if it creases around my mouth at all, because that's another thing that I really struggle with. But so far I actually really like this. It looks really good, even layered. So yeah, so let's move on to the other side of my face and my forehead and see how the big buffing brush does. I'm going to squeeze out a little tiny bit more. I love squeezy tube foundations because I feel like I waste less product. Alright, now we're going to buff. Let's see. So buffing the product, I feel like sheared it out a little bit. And I feel like it's a little bit patchy when you buff. Like this side, you can definitely see like it created a layer because my skin tone looks really even. But on this side, I feel like it's a little bit patchier and it's not as much coverage when you buff it. I also feel like it looks a little bit drier. And it's not like sticking to the side of my nose. So yeah, I definitely feel like I like stippling it with this brush a little bit better. Let me go in on my forehead. Now I'm intrigued to see what this product would be like with a beauty blender, especially because a lot of times like beauty blenders will shear out the product a ton because of the dampness of the sponge, obviously. So I'm intrigued to see what that would be like. But I think stippling it is definitely the way to go for my skin so far. It just creates a more like flawless application. Even though this side looks a little bit patchier than the other side, I still think it is a very nice finish to the skin. And I think if you're someone who wants to shear out the coverage a little bit, maybe buffing it is the way to go, or like mix a little bit of primer with it. It doesn't look bad, it just wasn't as intense as on this side. I will say this patch right here where my skin was really irritated was super dry from that product, but it's not like enhancing the dryness too much. And it covered it up pretty nicely. I mean, it looks a little dry, obviously, because the patch is like super dry. It's so gross. But it's not making it look any worse than it already looked. It actually covered it really nicely too. So far, so good. I'm really liking this actually. Even though it does look a little bit dry around my nose, I think a lot of foundations on me right now are just gonna do that because of my skin. It's just that time of year. So I try not to hold that against a product right away because all foundations do that on me. So I'm going to continue with the rest of my makeup. I'll do it quickly for you guys and then we can talk about some final thoughts. I want to see how products sit on top of it. So I'm going to use my NARS Soft Matte Concealer and just need my mirror. Dab a little bit of this. I will say I don't really have to conceal that many spots because the foundation did a really beautiful job at like covering up any redness I had or any little spots. But even though it's pretty decent coverage, I don't feel like it looks like I'm wearing like a full coverage foundation. This concealer looks pretty good sitting on top of it too. I decided to use this concealer because it's a little bit more matte than most of my other concealers, so I wanted to see how it would sit on top of this foundation. But so far it looks pretty good. My under eyes have been so much better recently. I started using like an oil-based eye product during the day, and I've been really enjoying it. I don't know, I think, when did I write that blog post about the Core Organics eye oil? That's the product I'm talking about, and I've been really enjoying it. So it's been hydrating my under eyes so nicely during the day. I'm going to use my Milk Makeup matte bronzer just to kind of contour a little bit, and then I'm going to use some setting powder and see what that does. I know it claims you don't have to set it, but I just want to see what's going to happen. I'm going to use my e.l.f. small stipple brush just to blend this out a bit. This is going to be like my simple everyday makeup. That seems to be sitting on top of the foundation pretty nicely. It didn't like lift any of the product or anything. My hair is getting in the way. So I think the driest place that it looks is on my chin where I have that like irritation. So not too bad. I'm not really going to blame that on the product though. I mean, it's slightly the product, but it's also just my skin. Even my MAC Face and Body foundation yesterday was looking dry right here. And if you guys know that product, like, that is the least dry product I think on the market. It's just my skin in that area has been so bad. So now I'm going to set with a little bit of powder. And I'm just using my Charlotte Tilbury powder. Where's my... And I'm going to be using this Luxie Precision Foundation brush. Now, I very rarely like set my entire face. Mostly because my skin is so dry anyway, I don't normally need to. But I'm just going to set the areas in my T-zone and under my eyes. And we'll just go with that and see how that works. Before I move on to my next powder product, I do want to use a little bit of the ColourPop like highlights, the Super Shock highlights. I'm trying to use a variety of different formulated products to see how they'll sit on this foundation. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this on my finger. This is in the shade Flexitarian. And let's see how this sits on top. Oh gosh, used too much. I always use way too much of this product. It actually blended pretty nicely on top of this foundation. It didn't pull up any of the product. Sometimes with like these cream highlights, I find that if you're not careful, they can pull up some of your foundation. Maybe it's just me because I'm really horrible at applying them. But that's definitely something I struggle with, so. It did pull up a little bit on my cheek. So far so good though. It wasn't horrible. I also think that's just my redness peeking through. But on this side it didn't pull up at all. It still looked like an even layer underneath. So those sit well on top. The cream product sits well on top so far. The powder under my eyes and stuff is looking pretty good. It looks a little bit dry around my nose still. But obviously it looked dry around my nose before I put anything on my face. So really, I'm not surprised. Now I'm going to go in with some powder bronzer, and this is the Makeup Forever Pro Sculpting Duo. I've been using this a ton lately. This color of this bronzer has just been a really nice tone for my skin right now. Oh, and this is my Makeup Forever Wavy and Straight brush. I'm like obsessed with this brush for powder products. Gives such a nice like diffused look to the powders. So the powders are sitting nice. It doesn't look patchy at all on my skin. The cream products are sitting nicely. So far so good. I do really like this. I'm gonna go do my eyes and my brows, and I'll come back and say a few words, and then yeah, we're pretty much done. Okay, so brows and eyes are done. My brows look a little wonky today, but it's fine. So now I just want to spray my face with some setting spray, which is the Morphe Prep and Set, and then talk about a final few things, and then I'll check in with you in a few hours. So let's spray. So let's look at what it looks like. Everything's sitting really nicely on top of this foundation, and it did create a very nice flawless look. It is looking a little bit dry around my nose, but again, like I said, that is the driest area on my face. Foundation always does that. Just something I have to live with. So I'm not really holding that against it at this moment. But yeah, everything else is looking really good. So far I really enjoy this. I did want to set it with spray because I know I was watching Luster Lux's or Katie's video on this foundation, and she was saying that she liked it so much more when she set it with a setting spray and kind of let that sink in. So I definitely think it gives more of a luminous look after you set it. It looks a little bit more like it's one with the skin, but that's what setting spray is for. I feel like it does that with a lot of foundations. So I do like how this is performing. I like how things are sitting on top of it. It looks really nice on the skin so far, but we will see in a few hours. So I'm gonna go about my day, and then I will check in with you guys probably in around like 6 to 7 hours. That's usually when I like to check in. So I will see you guys then. And alright, so it's been about 6.5-ish hours since I've been wearing this foundation, and it still looks pretty good. It wore off a lot around my nose, but I feel a cold coming on, so I've been blowing my nose a lot today, so that's no surprise that it wore off. It didn't crease at all in my lines. I feel like it looks pretty good. My skin doesn't look that dry. Let's zoom in a little. So this is you guys zoomed in. Honestly, like, it still looks really good. I'm really surprised. It did wear off a little bit on my cheeks right here where I applied that highlighter. But other than that, I think it still looks pretty good. Ignore my lip. So it was really just my nose where it wore off a ton. I feel like everywhere else on my face, I mean, there was a little bit of wearing on my cheeks, but my skin doesn't look dry or patchy in any places. So overall, I really like this foundation. I'm excited to keep testing it and keep wearing it and see what happens. But yeah, so far, I really like this. I think it looks pretty good. I think if you're looking for a medium coverage foundation that's gonna last a pretty long time, I definitely think this one is a good option, but I'm gonna keep playing around with it and see what else I think of it. But yeah, so thanks for joining me today, and I will see you in our next video. Bye guys.